Okay, cool.
Mhm.
Greg Bryant here with Jakob Bro, the wonderful guitarist, composer, band leader. Man, it's really a pleasure to have you, my friend. Thanks for taking time out. And I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Thanks a lot.
Indeed. Man, I was researching you and found out something that we have in common. And it's crazy. Both of us grew up in households that had this wonderful music of ours, improvisational music. Um, but like you, I was also touched early on by the music of Jimi Hendrix.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, it totally changed and opened my perspective. I was a little kid, maybe, oh gosh, maybe 5 or 6 years old, um, and I heard him through my father's collection. But I wanted to know how you discovered him and the impact that he had on your ears and on your playing. Were you playing guitar by then?
Yes, I was playing guitar. I mean, I started out playing trumpet
Mhm.
in my father's big band, and yeah, I was like 4 or 5 years old, I guess, listening to Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, Count Basie. Uh, so I was Miles Davis was my father was a trumpet player, so he was sort of schooling me in that direction. But then I I listened to Hendrix one day. My father had a huge record collection, and that sort of meeting with Jimi Hendrix was kind of mind blowing to me, and I started wanting to uh, get more into the guitar and just research that instrument somehow. And that was sort of the starting point for me in terms of changing the instrument basically.
Wow, that's
Mm.
that's that's cool. That's cool. I have to ask this too. Of the first four Hendrix albums, the ones that came out during his lifetime, do you have a favorite? Which one are you more inclined to?
Oh man, it's I mean, I love Axis Boulder's Love so
Mm,
much,
mm,
I love so much of his. I have some live recordings that are incredibly beautiful too. Um, there was like a small record shop in Denmark, in the town I grew up, and this person who was running the shop, he had all kinds of uh, older Jimi Hendrix CDs, records, and I was discovering him through that record shop. I can't even remember that he had like a box set
uh-huh,
of 4 or 5 CDs, and it was wild. I mean, the music was completely wild for me.
uh-huh.
Uh, you know, sort of like when I listened to, um, if I was when I went from Duke Ellington and Count
Mhm,
Basie to the
mhm,
later Miles Davis, for instance, hearing him play on Pluck Nickel, or
oh yeah.
that change was kind of dramatic to my ears somehow. And the same with Jimi Hendrix. If you hear him live, it was really a state of mind. Something you really had to spend time with it to understand it, I think.
It's a different thing.
Oh
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I vacillate between Electric Ladyland
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and Band of Gypsies.
Yeah. Well,
And mhm,
I love Band of Gypsies, and
uh,
Electric Ladyland. I found a double CD when I was a kid with all the naked ladies on. Uh,
yes, the
yeah,
English cover. Yeah.
exactly. It was so difficult to find, and I still remember finding that record, and I was just like in heaven. It was like, yes, here it is.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. But I read that he was disappointed that they didn't use the image that he gave them.
Oh
But when
yeah.
he saw it, he was like, ah, okay, you know. You know. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy that he's had an impact on so many people in just 4 years. You know, he
Yeah.
was here and then he was gone.
Yeah.
Um, and as you Jakob returned 2 miles to Coltrane after you had
Mm.
picked up the guitar and heard Jimmy, um, was it difficult for you at that stage to adapt horn parts or horn lines to the vocabulary of guitar? How easy was it to learn Miles Davis melodies or phrases on the guitar when you returned back to listening to jazz?
Very difficult.
Okay.
Very difficult. To me, it
Okay.
was, yeah, it's been a long journey, and I basically had to struggle with my instrument for a long time. I wasn't really, yeah, I don't know. The guitar was sort of like an alien to me for a long time. In Jimi Hendrix's musical universe, it was completely perfect. But
Mhm.
if I was listening to Thelonious Monk, or if I was listening to Billie Holiday, or Lester Young, or whatever, the guitar was always, at least the guitar I was hearing was sort of not really there in a way, and
Okay.
that really, it sort of bummed me out for many years, because I felt like I spent so much time with the guitar that I couldn't really go back to to a more acoustic sounding instrument like a trumpet or saxophone or double bass, or so I was spending time trying to translate the emotions that was coming at me from all the music I loved to the guitar somehow. It was
Uh,
yeah, and I think that translation process is sort of ongoing for me in a way. Even though now I've grown to love the instrument, because I think the difficulty of translating Coltrane into the guitar onto
mhm.
the guitar is also a beautiful thing in a way, I think.
Yes. Yes.
So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's interesting. As I heard Hendrix, the next few people that I heard were Wes Montgomery and then Grant Green,
Oh yeah.
and for a different reason, Grant really strikes me. He
Hmm.
hits my heart as a communicator.
Yeah.
Simple, straight down the middle,
Yeah.
but very rhythmic in his own way.
Yeah.
Did you at the time, again, you're hearing all these horn players? Did the language of this music on the guitar in a jazz way start to make sense? Were you listening to guitar players too, or not so much?
I was listening to guitar players. I mean, Grant Green is a big. I'm a big admirer of his music. I mean, yeah. So um,
Hmm.
when I sort of made the transition from trumpet to guitar, I pretty quickly became like re-interested in jazz music. I mean,
Hmm.
Coltrane, Miles, Monk, Lester Young, Dexter Gordon,
Hmm.
Bill Evans, etc. But I was also, of course, listening to Pat Metheny, to Bill
Oh
Frisell.
yes. Oh yes.
Schofield was a huge. I loved his way of playing. Pat Martino. Uh, um,
Hmm.
yeah, also the younger generation, Ben Monder and Kurt Rosenwinkel, and of course Grant Green, as you said, and Wes Montgomery, Charlie Christian. That's all. I mean, I was of course going through the school, and I love all these people. One thing that I really admire Grant Green for is the fact that he, the standards record, he's playing trio with,
Oh yes.
and it's like he's playing basically
Yeah.
that whole record without playing one chord,
That's
and I
I didn't
loved
think
him for
about
that.
that. Yeah.
Man, I loved him for that, because for me it was like, yeah, I was listening to horn players, and I was like, well, it's not really enough to just transcribe lines. You have to work with the
That's right.
chords as well, and
That's
all of
right.
a sudden, if you hear Kurt Rosenwinkel, for instance, he can do
Hmm.
both. He can almost play like a piano player on the
That's
guitar,
right.
and that was sort of overwhelming for me.
Mm.
And then hearing Grant Green play so soulful and so beautiful and melodic and rhythmic, and not play any chords, was just like, oh man, yes, that's also possible.
Yeah, man.
I love him for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is great. This is great. Man, there's someone else though too that we have to talk about. John Abercrombie.
Oh
And
yeah, of course.
unfortunately, I did not get to hear him live. I
Hmm.
got to New York only last year,
Oh
January,
yeah.
right before the pandemic. I'm originally from Nashville, Tennessee, in the
Ah,
southern
okay.
United States.
Mm.
But I would come to New York, off and on for the last 15, almost 20 years, but I never got to hear Abercrombie, although I was a big fan of the Gateway Band,
Sure.
and his original ECM recording made a huge impact on me with Jan Hammer and Jack DeJohnette. I
Oh
love
yeah.
that record.
Sure.
Timeless, yeah.
Mm.
But you met him at a crucial stage. Tell me about
Yeah.
how you met him and how his impact was for you.
Well, I met him, yeah, at a crucial stage. I'd say I quit high school to start studying at the conservatory in Denmark, and then
Wow.
I was very young, and I was at the conservatory for 1 year, and then I met Johnny Abercrombie. We have like a seminar in Denmark every summer, 1 week seminar where different musicians and artists come and teach, and so this summer, John Abercrombie was there with Danilo Perez, Michael Brecker. I think Eddie Gomez was
Wow.
there. Well, I mean, a whole bunch of incredible musicians. And I was like 17 at that time, and I would think that I was maybe the youngest person on the seminar, basically, because most of them
Yes.
were all professional musicians with a name, established name on the Danish music scene. So I was really young, and the last day of the seminar, everybody has to play a concert for each other, and there was I had heard a little rumor that Abercrombie and Michael Brecker and Danilo were, they were sort of digging my playing, and I was like, man, it can't be. But after that concert, they came up to me, and John in particular said, come to the US. You should come to the US to study, and
Wow.
that was really special. I actually quit my studies at the conservatory because of that. And a few weeks later, he sent me a letter, which was quite special. I mean, as a young musician, receiving a letter like that, where he was talking about me in ways I just couldn't believe. Basically, it was really crazy.
Yeah.
And that of course made me want to strive to become the best of what I could be.
Yes.
I wanted to show him that he wasn't wrong somehow.
Hmm. Hmm.
So so that was special. And then I went to New York, and I was studying in New York, and I was hearing John play. I went to a knitting factory. I heard him play with Billy Higgins on drums, which was
Oh,
special.
wow.
I only
Wow.
heard him play one time, and that was very beautiful.
Yes.
Uh, I think maybe it was Charles Lloyd's band with John Abercrombie and Billy Higgins, and
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. Man.
but anyway, but the funny thing for me was that I was talking to John, and I was like, "Yeah, come up to my house, man. We'll do a little session and a lesson." And I went up there, and we
Nice.
were playing a duo thing, and John was, yeah, I could tell he was sort of he was happy about it, because he really liked my playing from the seminar.
Hmm.
And we started playing, and I started playing a solo, and I think it was All the Things You Are. And once it was my time to accompany him, he was like, yeah, it wasn't as smooth as the other way around somehow, because I had been
Hmm.
working on my lines much more than my accompanying.
Hmm.
and and after the song, John just like looked at me and said, yeah, so you got to work on your comping, son. And I was like, it was so like spot on. I was like, yeah, I mean, you didn't even have to tell me. I mean, I know what you're talking about.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that was a beautiful lesson right there. Yeah, he
That's
was
incredible.
special.
Indeed.
Yeah, indeed.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And then too, your relationship, where I first heard of you was like many with Paul Motion.
Yeah.
The Garden of Eden record hit me really hard at a crucial time. I loved it.
Mm,
And it really showed to me how, for lack of a better word, that wall of sound that you guys built, um, everyone had a place in it. It wasn't,
mm,
too noisy or too unbalanced. Everything was in its right place.
mm.
That's how I heard it. Um, but can you tell me, number one, how you met Paul, and do you remember the first time you got to play with him?
Yes, very
Mm-hmm.
much indeed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that for me, meeting Paul is like the sort of milestone of my musical life. He's
Okay.
so yeah, I do remember. I mean, it's a little bit of a long story, but I'll try to make it short. I have a friend here in Denmark called Anders Christensen. He's a bass player.
Oh yes, Bobo
So
Stinson Trio.
no,
Not him. Okay.
not him. No,
Okay.
Anders is. He was he was playing a session in New York with the Danish saxophone player at Brian Blade. They were doing a session
Okay.
with Kurt Rosenwinkel.
Okay.
And so Brian Blade cancels the session, and they call in. At that time, Kurt is playing with Paul Motion's bebop band. So Kurt asks Paul if he can join that recording session.
Mm.
And so Paul joins, and they start playing. And apparently, after one song, Paul Motion looks at my friend Anders and says, "Hey man, do you play the electric bass?"
Mm.
And Anders was like, "Yes, I do." And he said, "Well, then I want you to play on the next tour with the Electric Bebop Band."
Wow.
So my friend Anders got that gig, and in Denmark, that was like it was like somebody dropped a bomb on the music scene when that news spread. It was completely wild, and I was just like, me and Anders were friends. We were playing here in Denmark, and I was basically just trying to absorb everything I could, from the stories he told about Paul, his touring with him, and everything.
Yes.
And then a few years passes, and I'm moving to New York, and I get to meet. I basically moved to New York because I love Paul Motion so much. So I go
Mhm.
out to hear him play. I study with Steve Cardenas. I take lessons with Chris Cheek, and so Paul is on tour in Europe, and the last day of the tour, he asks everybody in the band, "We're gonna play 6 months from now. Who can do it? Who cannot do it?" And Ben
Mm.
Monder had a conflict on
Mm.
one day, so Paul was pretty old school. So he was like, "If you can't do the whole tour, I'm gonna find somebody else."
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
yeah, and then I became that somebody else. It
That's
was
great.
pretty yeah, it was
That's great.
crazy, man. My friend Anders told me when he came back that yeah, they were talking about you, but it's probably not gonna happen. There was still Wolfgang Mutzspiel involved, and he
Mhm.
knew the music. Steve
Mhm.
Cardenas wrote me an email saying, yeah, it's who knows, maybe next time. And I remember wanting to frame that email because it meant so much to me that they even just thought about me.
True.
And
True.
then one morning I was sitting in my brother's bed playing Grand Theft Auto with him. He was like 10 years old. The phone rings, and it's my friend Anders saying, "Call Paul Motion now."
Oh.
And it was pretty wild. I mean, I was living with my parents at that time. I went into my father's music room where he was teaching, and I was like,
Mm.
"Paul Motion, I have to call Paul Motion." And my father, he was playing Satin Doll with a student, and he was just like, "You what?" I was like, "Yeah, I have to call Paul Motion." He was just like pale as it was
Yeah.
crazy. And I
Yeah.
call up Paul, and he's like, "Yeah, man, I want you to join the band." And that's how it sort of came about. Um, and the first meeting was in Italy.
Mhm.
The whole
Mhm.
band was there, and then Paul comes into the lobby with his cymbals. He's like basically just says, "Hey, man, I want to go. I want to hear you play. Let's go rehearse." So the
Mhm.
promoter in Italy found a little place where we could go and play with the band, and I was pretty well prepared because I spent every wake hour during those 6 months sort of trying to know the music of Paul, his own
Mhm.
material, the standard material he'd been doing, and so I was ready. But then on the other hand, I was also very young, and we came to that little rehearsal space, and there was people outside wanting autographs, and I was like, man, you don't want my autographs. I might be on the first flight home tomorrow, so but
Yeah.
it worked out. I mean, I remember we went
That's
in there
great.
and played Introspection by Monk,
Mhm.
and Chris Cheek took a beautiful solo, and then I had to solo afterwards, and Paul was like, yeah, man, you're in. And
That's great, man.
yeah, it was a
Wow.
learning
Wow.
period for me, but it was it's still something I try to sort of understand. I can't really. It's crazy.
That is too cool. That is too cool. Do you
Yeah.
remember the last time you played with him, or the last time you saw him?
Well, I was in, I guess the last time was one of my own albums.
Mm-hmm.
We were playing at the Vanguard with Paul's band, and he even brought in some of my songs. I remember we at the Vanguard well, basically we were I was with his band, and then I was sort of, you know, gathering courage to ask him to participate in some of my music.
Right.
And that sort of, for me, I wasn't ready, I think, to record my own music with him, but he was just like, he was pretty intuitive. I just wrote him an email saying, hey man, maybe 1-2 years from now, would you be willing to record with me? And he's like, yeah, let's do it in 2 weeks. You're going to be play with me at the Vanguard anyway. And I was like, man, okay, well, let's do it.
That's beautiful.
So yeah, I think the last time we played together was we were in dialogue in 2011 about an album, but I think 2009 was probably the last time we played together.
Got it.
Yeah.
Man, that trilogy of records that you did, the first one with
Oh,
Paul, and then subsequently with Lee Konitz and Bill Frisell.
Yeah.
The way that you create these landscapes around not just the instrumentation, but the personnel really resonates with me. There are some amazing, you know, moments to step forward, but the music exists in this kind of community that feels really comforting. You can put those albums on and you can just, you know, be at peace or have an adventure, you know, whatever the song, you know, dictates. That really, that the style of music making really, really hits home for me.
Thank
And
you.
I think before I ask you about your new record, your first few trio albums on ECM are great as well, but a little bit different. It's you know, a guitar trio, so you have to kind of step out a little bit more. Was that a challenge at all? Did you have to change your mind or your mindset?
A lot.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, you know, Manfred Eicher, we were talking about making an album with me as a leader, and we talked about a trio album. And for me, actually, it was a very big step because as you say, I've been making music where, you know, somehow I've been trying to make other people shine in a way, and I'm not really it doesn't really matter to me if I'm the one playing the great solo or something. It's not really my thing somehow.
I hear you.
So so I was actually, the first thing I thought was, you know, upon doing my first album for ECM as a leader, was, do I want to listen to a guitar trio album? And that I thought I sort of had to think about for a little bit. And then I just took up the challenge and started touring with, at that time it was Jon Christensen and Thomas Morgan, and from touring and playing concerts, we found a place together, I think, where the music was enjoyable both to play and also listen to for me, but very different, of course, as you say, as my previous things. But I think it's been very important to me to take that step somehow, from being a person that sort of casts light on somebody else and to step into the sort of spotlight myself in a way. Not that I hear my trio albums as a guitar soloing on top of a bass and drum. I hear them as very collective settings still, but the going from, of course, you know, playing with Konitz and Bill Frisell and Paul Motion, and touring wise, that's not really possible.
Right.
And for a while, it was difficult for me because people were asking me to come out and play live, and, you know, when I came out to play live, you know, I could hear balladeering in the loudspeaker before going on. This is not the music I'm going to play tonight.
Sure.
So, you know, it's been really nice for me to have to build music with a band and to be able to go out and present that music live also. And also, you know, it's been a way of learning to improvise, become better at playing music. it's one thing is to go into the studio and create something, but another thing is to play, with the same musicians every night, a new stage, and sort of be very focused on following your ideas, be true to what you hear, and not be afraid of, things not sounding as they did yesterday. And it's really been an adventure for me somehow. And now I feel like I'm at a point where I'm trying to sort of connect the pieces somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's like that's just my feeling at the moment. But I guess, if you ask me in 10 or 20 years, I'm probably still doing that. It's like a lifelong journey, I guess, making music and finding your voice.
Indeed, indeed. And I really feel like you masterfully execute that early concept on the trilogy albums, where you have this sound and this unified vibration on Uma Elmo.
Mm,
It's incredible, man. It's
oh,
incredible, and no one has to. Everyone can step out. Everyone can step back. You know,
yeah.
like Joe Zawinul used to say, "We always solo. We never solo." It's
Mm,
a consistent flow of energy
yeah.
at different. I love this new record.
Oh, thank you.
Mr. Hendrickson is a new name for me. Can you tell me a little bit about him and how you met him?
Yeah, I mean, for me, he's also a bit new.
Hmm.
I listened to him for the first time 4 or 5 years ago. He's a part of a band called Super Silent, and I heard a track on a record and I was quite moved by it, and his sound really struck me as being um, very sort of human-like in a way. It was very warm, but also it could almost be a flute, and in some points it could also be somebody singing basically. And that was, as a composer and yeah, I'm always on the lookout for things that move me in a way, sounds that move me, and Arve moved me when I heard him on that track. And I started thinking about maybe doing a collaboration with him at some point. um, and I've been, sort of in my own head, I guess. I don't know if it sounds like that, but in my own sort of head, I've had a leg in both the European/Nordic world of music and also in the American tradition somehow.
Right.
Uh, because I've been living in the US. Much of the music I grew up with was coming from from the US, and um, so it's for me. Yeah, I've had a lot of interaction with American musicians, like, and it was quite different for me on this album to not have that sort of interaction. Um, my songs are very, um, I'm inspired by Paul Motion in terms of writing, but my writing has also uh, sort of gone in a way that's much more diatonic, I'd say, than Paul Motion's is, and I think that sort of comes from the tradition of Nordic music, the music I grew up with here, the songs I was taught in school and when I was a kid, and I was playing in churches on the trumpet also, like Danish folk songs and psalms and stuff. And I
Hmm.
think that's sort of coming out in my way of writing now, and usually I like to have contrast, to that. I like to have contrast in my music, meaning if I have a piece of music that has very little chords, it's I've been so fortunate and to be able to ask musicians to create contrast for me. I can ask Mike Turner, will you do something with me on this song, and he's gonna create contrast.
That's
And with
beautiful.
Ave, it's like, he's I wasn't concerned, but I was curious about what that contrast would sound like, basically, because his sound is, at first, sight, it's beautiful, and I was like, I don't really want beauty on top of beauty. I want something else. So I was very curious to see what was what was going to be the end result when we started recording, because we never played a note together before that session.
Okay.
No rehearsing, nothing. I met Arve in the breakfast room at the hotel. 2 hours later, we start recording, and the first take we do is on the album. It's just a really, really inspiring and fun way to create something. You know, and of course, I'm very, very lucky to have Manfred Eicher on the side producing, and that room in Lugano is beautiful. It's like so warm sounding. You don't need to wear headphones or anything. It's so we're sort of giving birth to something together. And that's I'm still trying to figure out what we did. Like, and that's it. I love that, you know. For the rest of my life, I can put that on and like, oh yeah, what the hell happened those 2 days?
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. One of the pieces on there that you actually revisit during the course of the album might be, if I had to choose a favorite, my favorite one, the Morning Song.
Yeah.
Do you remember where you were when you wrote that? Any kind of reflection about that tune you could share with me?
Yeah, and for me too, that song is very important. I would probably also choose it as my favorite. But you're the first one who says that. So many other people talk about other songs, and that's cool too. But yeah, and I've never really said anything to that. But now that you say that Morning Song is, I can be frank.
Yes, you can.
I love it too. But you know what? The song has a, you know, I wrote it in our summer house. We have a little cottage, and I have I had a song in my sort of I don't know why, but I woke up and I had a piece in going around my inside of me called, and it was Cambodia of Paul Motion. From I can't remember if it's from one of the last. Is it called Time and Time Again? I think
with,
so. It's with
Lovano
Joe and exactly. Yeah. And it's I think it's on Time and Time Again. It's such a beautiful piece, and of course that trio has meant a lot to me. And yeah, and so that song, I didn't go back and listen to it. I just had the vibe inside of me, and then I was messing around with my guitar, and I wanted to sort of reconstruct something that, at least on an emotional level, was going on inside of me, and yeah, so that's the sort of inspiration.
I love it, man. It's a great piece, man. I look forward to maybe seeing some YouTubes pop up after the coronavirus of you playing that live. Tell me a little bit about that too. How are things bouncing back? I'm pretty sure it's still locked down, so to speak. How is it in Denmark right now with lockdown?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, we are reopening in different stages somehow. Live music is reopening May 6th. And I have concerts starting in June.
Fantastic.
So, and that's, I mean, I have also been able to play during Corona. We have had lockdowns, and then they reopened. And, you know, last summer we could play for 500 people if it was outside, and if there was, you know, the right distance between people. And clubs were also open in the fall, so it's been okay, I think. But now it's sort of taking its toll. I mean, I'm really getting, I'm starting to feel it somehow. Man, I want to get out there. I want to play also in other countries, you know. It's but speaking of live, I think we have the June 10th and 13th 2 concerts with that trio with Ave and Jorge, and those will be both recorded and filmed, so there will be live material coming out.
Nice.
But I have we actually in Denmark, this is not really musical, but we just dropped the AstraZeneca vaccine, which is actually a vaccine that's been used all over Europe, but there was some problems with it, and the reason why we're not using it as far as I can read is that the virus at this point in Denmark is under control. So there's no like third wave coming.
Good. That's great.
So it's yeah. But
Yeah.
then I guess like 90% of my work is abroad.
Hmm.
Is in Europe or in the US or so.
Hmm.
So basically, it's I feel like I'm still under lockdown, even though Denmark reopens.
Right.
So,
Right. Right.
but who knows? I'm supposed to mix with Manfred another record in 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So,
Nice.
also I'm one of my main things now is I'm going back to the Vanguard in New York in November this year.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I'm going to
So,
try to make it to see you. It
that
would be
would be
fun.
fantastic.
It would be
Yeah.
fun.
I hope it's going to reopen.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I have a
Yeah.
good friend that takes pictures there, John Rogers.
He's a really good friend of mine too.
Oh, cool, cool.
Yeah,
That's cool.
he's great. I mean, if it works out, I'll be there November 9th through 14th.
Okay.
And if you're into coffee,
I would love to.
I'll take you out.
Man, let's hang. That's a plan.
Yeah.
That's a plan. Yeah, I'd love to hear the band and just talk with you more, man. You're just an amazing player. You have a wonderful spirit, and
Thanks a lot.
man, it's my pleasure to have you on the show, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hang on for just a second, but
yeah,
keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks a lot, man. Thank you.
Indeed. Indeed. Indeed.